In a world dominated by headlines of war and territorial disputes, there's a quieter, more insidious form of control at work. A force that doesn't require tanks, drones, or armies marching across borders. Its weapon is far subtler, yet often far more effective: debt. Throughout history, empires have understood a simple truth: controlling the purse strings often secures more obedience than controlling the battlefield. While guns and soldiers can occupy cities, money can occupy nations, sometimes for decades, even generations. But how does a simple ledger, a balance sheet, or a loan agreement translate into real-world power? And why do some of the world's wealthiest countries prefer economic leverage over military intervention? When you extend credit to another country, you're not just giving them money. You're embedding influence. You're creating dependency. And once a nation's economy begins to rely on external loans, every decision, every policy can be subtly guided by the lender. Consider this: after a country borrows heavily to build infrastructure or stabilize its economy, it suddenly finds itself in a catch-22. Accept the loan and it must comply with conditions, often restructuring its economy, cutting social programs, or opening markets to foreign corporations. Refuse, and it risks default, economic collapse, or loss of international credibility. Either way, control is established without a single soldier stepping onto its soil. The term debt-trap diplomacy has been used in recent years to describe this strategy. But the concept itself is far older than today's headlines. In the 19th century, European powers lent massive sums to weaker nations under the guise of modernization. Railroads, ports, and public works projects were funded by loans that often came with strings attached. When repayment became impossible, the lender would step in, sometimes even taking control of key infrastructure or dictating policy. Today, the mechanisms are more sophisticated, but the principle remains the same. Loans are often bundled with technical assistance, market access deals, or stipulations that give foreign corporations a foothold. The recipient nation receives immediate benefits: roads, power plants, hospitals. But over time, those same benefits become leverage, tying the economy to the lender's interests. The power of debt lies not just in money owed, but in time. Whereas military occupations are temporary, economic dependency can last decades. Military force can provoke resentment, resistance, and rebellion. Debt, on the other hand, feels consensual, even welcomed. Leaders can claim they are building, investing, modernizing, even as the strings of obligation quietly tighten. And yet, despite its subtlety, the effects are profound. When a nation is bound by debt, it often must prioritize repayments over domestic welfare. Infrastructure projects may favor foreign contractors. Natural resources may be exploited to service loans rather than feed local economies. And political sovereignty, once thought untouchable, can be compromised by the weight of financial obligation. In many cases, this strategy achieves what military conquest could never: long-term influence without the cost of occupation, the political fallout, or the human toll of war. It's not just about controlling money. It's about shaping policy, guiding markets, and ensuring that strategic decisions align with the lender's interests. The genius, or the danger, of financial control is that it often masquerades as assistance. Loans are framed as generosity or opportunity. Yet beneath that veneer, there's a transfer of power as real and tangible as any army in the field. So next time we hear about a country receiving a loan or a grant, it's worth asking: who really benefits? And who is quietly gaining influence while the world applauds development and progress? This is the story of how ledgers have become mightier than cannons. How financial influence can bind nations more securely than any treaty enforced by troops. And how, in the modern era, empire often comes not with conquest, but with credit. Sri Lanka, for example. Just over a decade ago, it was hailed as a rising star in tourism and trade. Roads were rebuilt, airports modernized, and a sprawling new port was constructed, financed by billions in foreign loans. On the surface, it was progress, but behind the gleaming facades lay a stark reality. Unable to repay the loans, the country was forced to lease the port to a foreign company for 99 years. The debt hadn't just shaped the economy, it had reshaped sovereignty itself. This isn't an isolated story. Across continents, nations are caught in similar cycles. Loans to fund development often arrive with clauses that dictate trade policy, resource management, or even government appointments. It's not conquest with soldiers, it's conquest through ledgers, agreements, and interest rates. What's powerful about this method is its subtlety. There's no invasion, no overt display of force. And yet, when a nation's finances are tied to foreign creditors, every major policy decision, from energy strategy to education funding, is influenced by external priorities. The human cost of these arrangements is often hidden in plain sight. While cities may grow and skyscrapers rise, social services can falter. Schools go without textbooks, hospitals operate underfunded, and ordinary citizens shoulder the burden of repayment, sometimes for generations. Debt is not abstract, it is lived. It affects livelihoods, shapes migration, and even determines the course of political movements. Yet, because the transactions are framed as loans rather than coercion, the narrative often focuses on opportunity and development, masking the control that comes with dependency. Major financial institutions, multilateral banks, and even wealthy nations understand this leverage. By extending credit, they gain influence over policy without firing a single shot. It's a form of empire that is both invisible and enduring. Where once a colony required armies to maintain order, today, a loan agreement and a repayment schedule can achieve the same ends. Compare this to military occupation. Armies can secure territory, but they provoke resistance, resentment, and rebellion. The cost is immense, both in treasure and human lives. Debt, by contrast, offers compliance that is often voluntary, framed as mutual benefit. And once dependency sets in, it can last far longer than the presence of any foreign troops ever could. Yet the story is not entirely bleak. Awareness is growing. Some nations are renegotiating terms, seeking alternative financial partnerships, or exploring local funding solutions to regain sovereignty. Civil society, investigative journalists, and global watchdogs are bringing these quiet empires into the light, showing that transparency can challenge even the most entrenched economic power. The lesson is clear. Empire no longer always arrives with flags or guns. It arrives in spreadsheets, contracts, and interest rates. It's quieter, slower, and often harder to resist. But its impact is just as profound, shaping politics, economies, and the daily lives of millions. So when we think about global power, we must look beyond armies and borders. Ledgers, credit lines, and loans have become instruments of influence, tools that can bind nations without a single shot fired. The empire of finance is real, and it is quietly shaping the 21st century. Understanding this hidden power is not just an academic exercise. It matters to every citizen in every country. Because the flow of capital isn't abstract, it touches real lives, real communities, and real futures. And in a world where money can move faster than armies, awareness is the first step toward balance and sovereignty. If you found this exploration eye-opening, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video. The story of global power is ongoing, and the more we understand it, the better we can navigate a world where influence often comes with a ledger rather than a sword.